Sometimes, the truth hides in the most unexpected places, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The air inside the dealership was thick with the scent of polished leather and fresh motor oil. Engines purred softly in the background, while eager voices filled the space. A man in his late 40s, dressed in a faded jacket and worn-out jeans, walked in, his fingers grazing the smooth surface of a matte black sports bike. His movements were slow, hesitant, like someone unsure if he truly belonged here. The salesman at the counter barely glanced up. "Need help with something?" His voice was casual but distant, already assuming this customer wasn't worth his time. The man nodded, his eyes fixed on the bike. "Yeah. Thinking of buying one." The salesman let out a small chuckle. "These aren't cheap, buddy. You sure you're in the right place?" A few feet away, near the accessories section, two customers stood whispering. Their conversation was low but sharp, their words slicing through the hum of the showroom. "Did you hear about the owner? People say he never even steps foot in his own dealership, just sits in his office, counting his money." "Yeah, classic rich guy. No idea how bad his employees treat people." The man near the bike froze. His grip on the handle tightened. A flicker of something unreadable crossed his face. Because the truth was, he wasn't just any customer. He was the owner. And this visit wasn't just about buying a bike. It was about uncovering something much bigger. The salesman sighed, clearly losing interest. "Look, man, these bikes start at 20 grand. You sure you're not just browsing?" The owner, still playing the role of an ordinary customer, kept his voice calm. "I'd like to test one." The salesman smirked, shaking his head. "Company policy. We don't waste time on test rides unless we know you're serious." He tapped the counter. "You got cash or credit?" Before the owner could respond, the two customers nearby laughed under their breath. "See that?" one of them muttered. "This is exactly why this place has the worst reputation. They treat people like dirt unless they look like they can drop cash on the spot." The second man nodded. "I came here last month, and they wouldn't even acknowledge me. Had to go to another dealership to get a fair deal. The owner of this place is either blind or doesn't care." The owner clenched his jaw. Every word hit harder than the last. He had built this business from nothing, spent years turning it into one of the biggest dealerships in the city. But now, standing here unnoticed, he realized how much of it had spiraled out of his hands. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick bundle of cash, setting it on the counter without a word. The salesman's eyes widened. His entire posture shifted. "Whoa! Of course, sir. Let me get you set up with the paperwork," he stammered, suddenly eager to help. The owner said nothing. His eyes flickered toward the two customers still standing nearby. They had no idea who he was, and they had no idea that their conversation had just changed everything. The salesman moved fast now, all traces of arrogance replaced with forced enthusiasm. "Actually, sir, forget the paperwork for now. Let's get you on a test ride first. I'll bring out the best model for you." The owner didn't respond. He turned slightly, his gaze landing on the two customers again. They were still browsing, unaware that their words had hit the one person who could actually change things. "Hey," the owner called out. Both men looked up, surprised. They exchanged glances, unsure if he was talking to them. "You said this place has a bad reputation," the owner continued, his voice steady. "Mind telling me why?" One of them shrugged. "You saw it yourself, man. They judge you the second you walk in. If you don't look like an easy commission, they don't care." The other man folded his arms. "And the worst part? The owner's never around. Probably doesn't even know how bad it is." The salesman's face turned pale. Sir, don't listen to them. Customers exaggerate all the time." His laugh was nervous, fake. The owner ignored him. "So, if the owner was standing right here, what would you want to tell him?" Both customers chuckled. "Easy," one of them said. "We'd tell him to get his head out of his office and actually see how his business is being run." Silence. The salesman shifted uncomfortably. The two customers had no idea that the man they were speaking to wasn't just another buyer. The owner exhaled slowly. Then he pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and waited. A voice answered on the other end. "Yes, sir?" The owner's next words sent a chill through the room. "I want every manager in this dealership here, right now." The salesman's face drained of color. His eyes darted between the man in front of him and the phone in his hand. "Sir?" The two customers looked at each other, confused. "Wait, what's happening?" one of them whispered. The owner finally turned to face them fully. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was sharp. "You wanted to tell the owner something?" He slipped his wallet from his jacket, flipped it open, and placed it on the counter. The business card inside caught the overhead light. Logan Carter, owner, Velocity Motors. Silence crashed over the room. The salesman took an unsteady step back. The customers stared, realization hitting them like a freight train. "You," one of them started, struggling to form the words. "You're the owner?" Logan nodded. "And you just gave me the most honest feedback I've heard in years." The salesman scrambled for damage control. "Sir, I didn't know, if I had known—" Logan held up a hand, cutting him off. "That's the problem, isn't it? You treat people based on what you think they're worth, not on how they should be treated." Before the salesman could stammer out another excuse, the front doors swung open. 3 managers walked in, confusion on their faces. One of them, a middle-aged man with a neatly pressed suit, immediately recognized Logan. "Sir, we weren't expecting you today." Logan's voice was calm but heavy. "That's the point." He turned, motioning toward the customers. "These men just told me more about my dealership in 5 minutes than any of you have in the last 5 years. The managers stiffened. The salesman looked ready to disappear. Logan stepped forward, his tone final. "Things are about to change.